If you're a fan of Stephen King's Dark Tower book series, you should check out the War for the Tower podcast. The War for the Tower is an actual play podcast set in the world of Stephen King's Dark Tower, and it includes elements of every possible universe, including those from literature and pop culture, and the characters are all over the map. There's a drow elf psychic, Magnus Bane, High Warlock of Brooklyn, Hezekiah Staunton, gunslinger of Midworld, and many more. The settings include New York City circa 2020, a world in which JFK lived and served a second term, and the Vietnam War ended in '65, plus a blown-to-crap version of Midworld. Our heroes are given an important mission to save all universes, and we have a fun, sexy time along the way. Check them out wherever you download your podcasts by searching War for the Tower, or go to warforthetower.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 4, Episode 10, Forest of the Dead. Part 2 of 2. In this episode, so the books are haunted by meat-eating shadows.
Well, when you say it like that.
That's metal as fuck, guys. Welcome to Unspoiled. The show, everybody. I am Natasha.
I am Jamie. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. We're talking about meat-eating shadows.
Can that be a postcard someday? So the books are haunted by meat-eating shadows.
Just want to get this straight. I was making sure I didn't misunderstand what was happening here. Yeah, this episode was really good. I liked it even better than the first one.
Yeah.
Which I was really concerned about. Mm-hmm. Because that'll happen with two-parters. There's one part that you're like, oh, this set up some awesome shit. And then you're like, wow, that did not pay off at all.
Or they'll, like, settle most things right in the beginning. And then you're like, well, now what?
Mm-hmm. I was kind of pleased about my suspicion of Mr. Dr. Moon. It's not that he's, like, a bad dude. It's just that he is kind of an unfeeling construct. It's weird, though. He's not exactly unfeeling because he has like an urgency about helping because of the programming in him being meant to help. But the whole thing is so bonkers, guys. So I only got like a because I was throwing out wild theories last episode about what I thought was going on. And the human beings being saved in a hard drive because there was no way to like get them out in time was pretty much on point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I had no idea what was happening. Like this little girl and the whole library, like being in her mind. That's not true. It's real. The place is real.
It's real.
Just that her experience of it is virtual, which is real strange.
It's like she also was put into this program, but they, in order to store it, in order for her not to be traumatized by it, they gave her a world.
Right.
That her consciousness lives in. And then when this thing happened in the library, which was something that she was seeing in her brain, she saved all the people because her instinct was to save them.
Which is sweet and adorable and horrifying. This is like a Twilight Zone episode. Where, you know what I mean? Like it's just sort of a really something that seems like a terrible thing that winds up being a good thing, or vice versa. And it's like, oh, I want to save everybody, which is a good instinct, which means that I sucked them into my hard drive and created a fake virtual, like a world that would be almost a utopia if they weren't constantly low-key aware shit isn't right.
I think that most people maybe weren't really entirely aware. I don't know. Well, I don't know because we don't really get to experience anybody else other than Donna, who we know doesn't belong there, and so she quickly figures out that she doesn't belong there.
Nobody belongs there, though.
Right.
These are all just poor saps fucking at the library, man. You know, like, nobody really is supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
She's the most recent addition, but I don't really feel that there's any particular reason why she would be more aware than anyone else that this isn't totally right. Is there a reason? Like, I don't know. I would not be surprised at all if everybody else started to sort of sense that some shit was off.
They've been in there for 100 years.
Sure.
I don't know. Because we don't get any sort of insider, like, any interaction that Donna has is with Dr. Moon, who doesn't exist, and the guy Lee, who she ends up being married to. But we don't get anything from him where he might be questioning things.
True.
Because even when she is like, that woman that out the window, that's weird, and he's just not concerned.
I mean, it could have just at this point kind of been like something that they suspected initially, and then they sort of were like, well, I guess this is real.
Right.
After 100 years.
Right, that's what I mean. Like,
but
I think what would freak them out more is getting sucked out of the utopian world into, like, oh, now we're back in the library, and wait, I'm sorry, it's been how long?
That was the thing that I really wanted to see. I wanted to see everybody reacting to finding out how long it's been. Because it's really treated as a happy ending that everybody gets, like, returned to their bodies and able to be sent home, but there's nobody alive anymore that they knew.
Yeah.
Which is bonkers and horrifying and like a fucking bad dream. Like,
yeah, like, kind of worse.
Also, what's going on with her and this dude is the saddest story in the universe, by the way. Him seeing her and trying to call her name, and he can't speak.
Yeah.
Again, literal nightmare, guys. I had tears in my eyes when he's calling her and she just walks away and then he gets beamed to wherever the fuck. A fucking land that's gone on for 100 years without him, and now they have iPhones and he's just like, what?
Well, they probably had iPhones.
You don't know.
Before, or some version of such a thing, since they were very far in the future already.
I'm just saying, a lot can happen in 100 years, technologically speaking. And he's going to show up and not know what the fuck is going on. And, I mean, it helps that he's not the only one. You know, there's thousands of people that this happened to. And we can assume, it is sort of weird to me that they are all people. I expected there to be, like, some aliens also who were accessing this library, and it was all human being people.
Yeah.
And that was actually, honestly, like, sort of surprising.
Maybe this is what happened on The Leftovers.
Oh, my God. It was a computer glitch. I'm sure there has to be theories like that in that, right? In that universe.
You'd think.
But, yeah, it reminds me of the Snap, you know? And a bunch of people, like, come back at once, and at least you can be like, oh, okay, I wasn't the only one. It's weird for me to be back, and it's very, like, disorienting, but I'm not alone in this, and that's helpful. Yeah. But Jesus Christ, like, imagine that. You'd vanish, you're living this life that seems pretty damn good, and then you come back, and you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot. This is my life. Except it's not. Because they're dead, everybody that you cared about. And the life that you thought was good, that was not real, is also gone.
Yeah.
Shit. Like, this is a horror story, honestly, if you look at the pieces of it. And River dies?
Yeah.
Which, she's still alive, but, like, no, she's not. Honestly, let's be real here, guys. Is it a happy ending for your consciousness to go on eternally with a bunch of your coworkers? That feels like a fucking nightmare too.
She seemed pretty happy about it.
She did, for some reason.
Well, because that meant she's not there all by herself. Like, oh, there's all these people that I felt like maybe it was my fault they died.
So, cool. I'll just be dead with them.
So we'll all just live here together.
Just, I mean, I would have appreciated, you know, if there had been thrown in there, like, a person that she really was just friendly with, family member, something like that. I know there's not a way to do that, but it did feel like, here's a bunch of my, she is their supervisor. She's their boss, right? This isn't a great deal for them either. Like, imagine if your, like, regional manager was one of the, like, 6 people in heaven with you. That's a little bit awful.
Again, they seem pretty happy about it. Maybe they'd all been working together for a long time. They were like a team.
They're just trying to put a good face on it.
Except for New Dave. He's new to the team.
Oh, poor New Dave. He did not know he was getting into a fucking life sentence here.
No.
More than life sentence, an eternal sentence, because you don't get to opt out of this, evidently.
There's a lot about the River story here that is just heartbreaking to me.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Her whole... and we'll get there, but I, again, was crying. And then my boyfriend's like, are you okay? And I was like, it's just so sad.
They're like, this is just I really like this episode. I'll say again, like, probably these two are my favorite so far of the entire show. Mm-hmm. But goddamn, it's honestly quite bleak when you step back and really look at everything. It's just, ouch.
When she says to the doctor, so you're just meeting me, that means that the entire time we knew each other, you knew that this was where it was going to end for me.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
It's so sad.
Yep.
I can't even deal with it. And that he had to, and sad for him too, because he can't tell
he's gonna
her.
Have to go on and live that now.
Yeah,
and know that. Oh, I never told her, so
the next time
I just do this.
The next time he sees her, he knows this is my next time. But which time is it for her? And eventually, she's leading to. That's just all leading to this, to her sacrificing herself so that I don't sacrifice myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up. It reminds... Well, I'll just say, it reminds me a little of Dark. Have you seen Dark?
No.
It's sort of like that, where there's some weird time travel stuff that people don't exactly have a lot of control over. And you watch this, like, awful thing happening, but you can't really not let it happen, because if you do, other things will go so catastrophically wrong. So you just have to, like, let somebody suffer horribly for, like, 20 years.
Ugh.
Because if you don't, then there's, like, no telling what other shit is going to wind up going wrong. So, yeah, it's sort of... It reminds me of that a great deal, actually. So this episode starts off, guys, with Donna being, like, brought in an ambulance to this, like, home. And it's so creepy because you know that this isn't real exactly, but you don't really know if it's nefarious or not. It's clear that Dr. Moon is deceiving her, but I couldn't quite, like, hate him. I just kept falling into, I don't know, she got swept up out of a really dangerous place where she was about to die. I can't help but think they're trying to help whoever this is. And it turns out that is the case. But in the moment, it's so awful. And also, again, having an aunt that's experiencing more and more acute symptoms of Alzheimer's and looking up and forgetting how she got where she is. the continuing moments of her, like, talking about wanting to take a walk and suddenly being outside and not remembering the walk out. And for us as viewers, a cut like this in editing is nothing, but it's made really clear that for her, that cut also happened, which is really, really, really weird. And I got pretty excited when I realized that they were doing this, that they were playing with her, like, her perception of what was happening. And yeah, she's like, he is asking her if she remembers the doctor, the blue box, time and space. And she's just looking around, like, not even really hearing him, just like, how did we get here? And he tells her, we came down the stairs out the front door. We passed Mrs. Alley on the way back. And she says, yeah, we did. I forgot that. And he says, and then you remembered. And so I get the feeling that getting transported into this system, your brain has to be kind of like, your brain has to get into the habit of filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
So that's part of why she's at this home, is them sort of like rehabbing her so that she will fill those blanks in for herself and grow to learn to do that automatically and not really ask too many questions.
Right. And also not think about her previous life at all.
Right.
It's like being told to only live in the moment that you're in and not question anything around you, because she doesn't pay attention to the children later until Miss Evangelista points it out to her. They're all the same child.
So creepy. I love that moment. What a creepy moment.
Yeah. And like
I did a Unspookled recently where they were like kind of ghost children that looked like the same. Like a girl looked in her sister's bedroom and there were two girls in her sister's bed. And one of them sat up and looked at her and looked exactly like her sister and smiled at her.
What? No, I hate this. Stop.
Yeah.
I hate it. That's messed up. And also there's a part of me that's like, there's no way that happened.
I like, these are the kinds of things that I'm like, I 100% believe they saw some shit. I do not believe that what they saw was what was happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it could be explained in any number of ways. But then I'm like, I am sort of open to the idea that there's shit out there we don't know.
Oh, I totally am, obviously.
Maybe it did.
But a figure, a non-corporeal figure that looks just like your sister?
No, it was corporeal, because she freaked out and ran to get her mom and came back and the bedding was all messed up, like somebody had just gotten out of the bed. But there was only her sister there.
That could also be done by a ghost.
I mean...
Or a poltergeist.
I don't know why you're saying it like that's the more reasonable explanation.
Because it's reasonable. It's a reasonable explanation to me that it might be a ghost, but not a ghost that looks just like her sister. That doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm assuming that this is some sort of creature that's like shapeshifts.
I don't like that at all. Ghosts, I will accept, but creatures that shapeshift, no. That's for supernatural television and nothing else.
Yeah, there was some sort of there was some podcast I was listening to. By the way, guys, if you haven't listened to the podcast called Spooked, it's so weird because there's like this long intro with this guy who talks like this. Welcome to Spooked. And he's like got this really deep, sexy voice, and there's fucking R&B playing over the whole intro, and it feels like it's going to be a very different show. And then all of a sudden there's like, so when I was 11, there's a different person talking, and they're like, my grandmother met the devil. And you're like, what? Wait. So I recommend Spooked. But I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about these children with black eyes.
Nope.
That a couple of people have seen, and they look like regular kids until you get a little closer and their eyes aren't quite right.
So
and
they'll demons.
They'll say something like, can I come in and use your bathroom? Or just any sort of like thing to get you to let them into your house. And the whole thing is just fucking don't do it. They're not children. Do not let them into your house.
No,
Don't
they're
fall for
demons.
it. I mean, they could be any number of things. I don't like to use the word demon. I always associate that with Catholicism, and I'm just like, ugh. But
Supernatural taught me that creatures with black eyes or human beings who have black eyes are human beings that are possessed by demons.
As long as the sclera is also black, right? The whole thing.
The whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Otherwise, you'd just be racist.
They can like blink, and then they'll have just regular eyes, but then they'll blink. They can blink again, and then they've got the demon eyes. But their whole eye is black.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, the scene with the little kids running around and all of them being the same kid really put me in mind of like evil creatures tricking, like trying to create changeling situations.
Yeah.
You know, like the Fae coming up in here being like, raise me as your child, and meanwhile I'm going to wreak havoc on your life.
Yeah. Different story being told here. They're just copies because it's easier to replicate to the code of two children than make lots of different codes.
So this is when she's like goes fishing and she meets Lee for the first time. And then we get this amazing montage of them like becoming close and then getting really romantically involved, and then him carrying her over the threshold, and then her being pregnant, and then her suddenly having 3 children or 2 children or whatever.
2 children.
And it's just like this very...
And it's all like thing. Like it happens with each blink of your eyes.
Mm-hmm. It is adorable and really sweet. And she assumes later that she invented him.
I know. That, to me, honestly, that is the saddest, one of the top saddest moments in this episode is her saying, I created a man who was gorgeous and couldn't speak. And what does that say about me? And then the doctor being rude and saying everything. I mean nothing. Nothing.
Her looking at him. Really? Yeah.
And like for Donna to have to then go on with her life thinking that is what happened. That she created a man that was perfect for her, and part of being perfect for her was the fact that he can't get words out because he has a stutter. When he actually did exist is very heartbreaking.
And apparently really did love her because he sees her and is immediately desperate to like get her attention.
And I can't
can you imagine if you woke up and you were like, oh my God, thank God I'm not actually married to that fucking cunt. Like, just how much of a relief it would be. It would almost be kinder, but no.
Yeah. I do love a stutter. I think they're so cute. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing about me. But I think stutters are really cute. Which should make people with the stutter feel better about it. Honestly.
Or are you just weirdly fetishizing them?
I'm not fetishizing them at all. It's not like, I don't think it's not like in my list of things that I'm hot for. I just think they're cute. I think it's really adorable when somebody has a stutter, and it's not something they should be embarrassed by because it's so cute. It's like braces. I think braces are cute too. It's weird, but it's what it is.
All right then.
I also like a lisp. If we're, I guess a speech impediment is something that I just think is cute on a person.
Evidently. How weird.
I know, but I always, when I was a kid, if someone had a stutter, I was like, "Aw, so cute."
So you liked Bill in It?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So things have like finally sort of settled down, and she's talking to Dr. Moon, and then all of a sudden his form breaks apart like static, and the doctor is standing there, and he's saying the signal's definitely coming from the moon. And she gets this look on her face and realizes, and all of a sudden Dr. Moon is back. And she's like, what the fuck? I just saw the doctor. And fucking Dr. Moon tries to be like, oh yeah, it was some lady's rhubarb surprise. And, you know, you saw the doctor for a second, but then you forgot.
Yeah.
And then she stands up and says, oh my gosh, Dr. Moon, can I make you a cup of tea? What are you doing here? Dislike. So creepy. So this starts her down the whole path of like really starting to catch on to the fact that something is wrong. And meanwhile, this girl in the library, or with the library in her, I guess, can see like all of these scenes on her television in a way that she wasn't able to before.
Yeah.
So it's becoming more and more clear that whatever illusion she was presented with for her sanity is starting to sort of break apart, and she's able to access everything a lot more readily than before, which it turns out is a problem. This is like bad news. But initially, I was kind of relieved because I was like, oh, well, it seems like things are like becoming clearer to her, so she'll be able to help more. But she winds up being the liability in the end, which I didn't really see coming because I didn't understand that she was really a little girl.
Yeah.
I thought that she was represented by a little girl, but was that going to turn out to be programming herself? And it turns out that she's been programmed into this thing, but she is still a child with a child's understanding and mind. And
yeah,
that is just really kind of a terrible thing they did there.
Right. Like, their intentions were good. She was sick or something, and so his grandfather, like, came up with this way to give her a full life by letting her have access to everything in the world, which is every book ever read or every book ever written. Mm-hmm. But she's stuck as a child.
Yeah.
In this moment in time. Forever.
Yep. That's not really a full life. It's just like a full portion of a life.
Yeah.
An overly full portion of a life that's supposed to like continue on and grow and be a stepping stone on the way to like learning more and growing as a person, but she's not allowed to grow as a person.
Right. Like, ultimately, this was a really selfish thing that you did for yourself because you didn't want to completely lose your daughter. You put her face in a statue and you put her consciousness in a computer. And then what? Now your ancestors or your descendants have to take care of this computer library for this child that should be 100 years old by now.
Yeah, that you guys left for 100 years, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, apparently nobody came to get her until now. Which, honestly, what the fuck?
Well, it's like there was something happening, and so he hired River and her team with the, let's go see why this library has been empty, but also so that he could, like, check on Cal without telling anybody, like, what's actually going on. Although I am glad that it didn't turn out that he was this, like, nefarious person, you know? Like, he really was just wanting to check on his family member and trying to protect that from being destroyed.
I don't know. I still think he's nefarious. It's just that it wasn't for money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a little girl that's been trapped in here for 100 years.
But she's not...
And you didn't even really tell anybody what was going on or warn them? Like...
We say trapped, but it's not like she knows she's trapped. It's like she's suspended.
Sure.
But still, like, why do you need to keep that up? You're just going to keep this suspended consciousness forever?
Indefinitely, yeah. And, you know, this guy isn't like a teenager. He's known about this for a minute.
Yeah.
Why now? Why this has been going on since before he was born, this place being abandoned. So I don't understand why now is the time that he decided, like, oh, this has gone too far. I really should step in and find her and see what's going on. Like,
That's a good question. I don't think they really pose that question or anything close to an answer.
Yeah. Which is fine, like, but it is, again, this is a horror story. Full stop. Like, so yeah, we get the doctor who's like trying to figure stuff out because we like bounce backward to before he actually sees Donna and see everything that all led up to that. And River's team is very uncomfortable with the fact that she knows this guy and says she trusts him, but he doesn't seem to trust her back, and she can't tell them anything about him. And all of them, like, clearly want to trust her and respect her, but they find this whole thing really weird and inexplicable and frustrating. And when she tries to talk to the doctor, they just keep on, like, arguing about whether or not he should take her word for it, that they know and trust each other at a later time, and that this matters. Mm-hmm. And somebody yells at the two of them like, hey, we're over here about to die, and you guys are bickering like an old married couple. And I was like, old married couples don't tend to bicker about, I swear you know me and trust me eventually, and here's the sonic screwdriver you gave me as proof. They're bickering about a thing that is very relevant to the fact that you all are about to die. It's not that they're unaware of that fact, sir. But, go off, I guess. And finally, she leans forward and whispers something into the doctor's ear. And he gives her a look like he has seen a ghost. And we find out later that it was his name. Yep. His actual name, which I have said I wanted to know what the deal is with the names. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty excited that he has one. I have no idea if we will ever hear what it is. I almost don't want to hear it. Like, there's a part of me that's like, no. I can't deal with this dude being fucking, like, Calvin. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just...
Mike.
Don't tell me anything about what his name really is. But then another part of me is like, oh, but I am so curious, not only just to hear it for the sake of it, but like, is it a name that is a human-ish name at all? Or is it like, some fucking series of sounds that means nothing, that you're just like, well, okay, thanks for telling me, I guess.
His name is
So he finally decides to trust her. The sonic screwdriver that she hands him has different abilities than his. It's got a red setting, I think she calls it. And she used the dampeners, and he's just like, it doesn't have dampeners. And she's like, oh, mine does. And I also love when she tells him that he needs to stop being so emotional.
And he's like, I'm not emotional! Like, oh, I just woke my cat up. Like, that's, when that sounds like truth when you yell it.
Oh my God. I am calm! Yep.
Yeah.
Sister, I do not think thou art being honest with thyself. So yeah, anybody getting to tell the doctor that maybe he needs to put his pride aside and sign that contract and stop being so emotional is kind of my new fave. So that's fun.
I just love how these two, in the span of 2 episodes, even in the first episode, she plays it with such confidence. Mm-hmm. Like, no, I know you. I know your quirks. I know how you behave. And then stuff like this where she's like, you need to stop being so emotional. It's like, the way she speaks to him is not with any kind of kid gloves or any kind of like hero worship. Yeah. She does know who he is and knows him well enough to be like, oh my God, you are being ridiculous right now. Like, seriously, relax. Take a breath. and then use that big brain of yours so that we can get out of this.
That big brain. Use it. So he starts talking to him about how his sonic screwdriver is so strong that nothing can interfere with it except the occasional hair dryer. So there is a very strong signal coming from somewhere that wasn't there before. And what has changed? And somebody says, well, it's dark now. And he's like immediately like, it's a screwdriver. It works in the dark. And then it turns out that person was actually making a pretty decent point, because there is a moon that has come out because it's starting to get darker.
I think
the moon is a thing.
I think it was Other Dave who said it.
Poor Other Dave. What a shame. There's proper Dave and then there's Other Dave. How insulting. But, like, imagine if somebody was just like, oh, no, that's Jamie. This is fake Jamie. Like, wouldn't you just be like, what the fuck?
My roommate of 7 years was Jamie. Her name is Jamie. And we would be like, Jamie 1 or Jamie 2? Which one did you need to talk to? And we had to decide which one of us was Jamie 1 and which was Jamie 2. And I was Jamie.
And then you had to explain it to everybody? Did you wear a name tag?
Well, when people really knew us well enough, we'd be like, which Jamie did you need, 1 or 2? But otherwise, we'd be like, Smith or Rutledge, who did you need to talk to?
So, if somebody said that you were the fake Jamie, wouldn't you be annoyed?
Yes, but I really wish that we had been proper Jamie and Other Jamie.
Which one of you would have been proper Jamie?
Me, I was born first.
Yeah, how about that? It's funny how that works.
I'm 2 days older than her, so I get to be number 1, or proper.
So this is when he finds out that the moon is like the core of the computer. And he says somebody in this library is alive and trying to communicate, or drying their hair. Which
is that what he says it is?
It's
the core of the computer?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Hold on, let me just back it up here. Bloop, bloop, bloop. They look up, see the moon, which looks pretty cool. What's there? It's not real, but it was built as part of a library. It's just a doctor moon. What's a doctor moon? A virus checker. It supports and maintains the main computer at the core of the planet. Okay, that's what they said. So it's not the core computer. It helps support the core computer.
I like that it's a virus protector.
Yes.
It's McAfee Moon.
Yeah, exactly. It's a doctor. It's a doctor. He never calls. So signal is definitely coming from the moon. I'm blocking it, but it's trying to break through. And that's when Donna appears all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, what the fuck was that? And he starts to realize that she's still out there somewhere. That her face being on that statue does not mean that something literally ripped her living face off.
No, it did not.
Which is what I sort of wondered at the time. I would like to register my disbelief that these faces could just appear this quickly on these statues without just getting... Oh my God, is the guy that she saw when they picked a face that she would like Lee?
No.
Oh, that would have been so good though. Damn it.
It would have been, but no, remember it was the guy from Thor. We talked about him.
Oh, that's right, yeah. They should have picked Lee. That would have been pretty good consistency. But okay, this is when, what's her name?
Anita.
Realizes that she has a second shadow. Dun, dun, dun. Anita. And she is pretty cut up about it.
Well, wouldn't you be?
Somebody's like, you gotta stop crying. And she's like, yeah, I just found out I'm about to die, so I really don't think that crying is like a ridiculous response to this information. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep crying if that's okay with you. Thanks. Which, yeah, she is correct about that. Listen, The one thing I will say about these meat shadow things is that they fucking do their job real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But they do really like to torment you first with the shadow thing, which I'm not a big fan of. Just do it then. Don't taunt me like this.
Yeah.
You know, like mean. Ouch. Just to get it done then.
They need to find a way into those suits.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
So it takes some time to,
It's just she doesn't have a helmet on at the time.
No, but it seems like because they're shadows, they're starting at the floor.
Yeah.
So they have to work their way up. And because they're a swarm, they're, little tiny particles or whatever. So they have to get through that suit. You put the helmet on, you think like, well, it's airtight. So that keeps them from getting in. But I think once they've attached, there's no real way to stop them.
Yeah. The doctor tries to trick them by making it seem like they're already in there by adding like a tint to her visor.
Yeah.
And that seems to like prolong the thing, but it does not stop them in the end.
Yeah.
Which leads to a pretty cool sequence later when he realizes after a minute that she's been dead. And he has not noticed because he's been busy with other stuff. Which I really liked that moment of just sort of like suddenly going, oh, you're repeating yourself. Fuck.
Yeah.
So, and as they all start to like run around because they're realizing that they're in danger, the video that the library girl is watching on the television starts to get more and more frantic. And she is really starting to react with strong feelings. It's not until later that she really begins to totally lose it, but it's starting to head in that direction at this point. Meanwhile, Ella, fucking Donna's daughter, has made some weird clay person with no face.
Yeah.
And Donna says, where's the face? And she just says, I don't know. And I was like, I don't appreciate that show. He could have just not done that, but all right. I guess this is how you want to play it. And this is when we start getting the whole thing with her getting the message from some mysterious woman in a veil. This dope dress. I love the idea that this woman chose this dress. That, like, she has a little bit of control over the programming code. And that she was like, I will be damned if I'm just going to wear what everybody wears. You are going to give me a black lace dress with a bustle and a veil. And I am going to be mysterious AF and just fucking prowl around in people's gardens, leaving them notes. And I really think that this is something that we should all aim for later in life. To just start sort of like low-key haunting people, but we're still alive. I like it.
Seems like a lot of work to get into that dress. But maybe once I'm older and have, less urgency to do other things.
You're retired. You got plenty of time to kill getting in this dress.
Yeah. I'll hire somebody to, like, get me all laced up and whatnot, and then just go wandering around, leaving notes in people's porches.
It'd be a pretty dope Halloween costume, actually. Because you could, you don't need to be familiar with Doctor Who to be spooked by it. Mm-hmm. But if you do know Doctor Who, then you could have somebody who's just, like, in their pajamas holding a letter as your sidekick. And they would just know what was happening. So she tells Donna to meet her at 2:00 at the park. And the little girl is watching this on the screen saying, no, Donna, don't go. And I was like, it turns out that this girl it's not that she's trying to hide anything because of of her doing something nefarious. It's because she doesn't want Donna to be hurt by her brain not comprehending what's going on. So, and that was kind of what I was like, because she says, don't, you'll ruin everything. And there's a moment of thinking like, oh, you're going to ruin my grand evil plan. But a second later, I was like, I don't think that's what she means. I think she just doesn't want this like project that she's put so much time and work into to get ruined.
Well, if one person or two people know the truth, that spreads the truth, and it breaks the very simplistic, dreamlike existence for all of these people, where everything is easy and like what a child would come up with for you.
Right.
And the child's brain in this computer probably can't comprehend how to handle all of that system breaking down.
Mm-hmm. So it turns out that this is Miss Evangelista. And at one point, Donna's like, if I had a face like yours, I wouldn't hide it. Why are you? And she like yanks the thing off when she gets really agitated. And it is horrifying. It reminds me of like the painting lady that in the flute, that has the flute, I think, or the violin.
In the book. Oh, no, that's in the movie. They made that up for the movie. Yeah.
And
that's what they gave Stan to be afraid of, right? Instead of... What was he afraid of in the book?
I don't remember what his was.
Because he always...
I remember... They don't give Mike the bird, because that was Mike's thing in the book. He was like afraid of this like crow.
A giant bird, yeah.
Yeah. But it just, the way the face is like distorted and sort of pulled out of shape in just like two places, which throws everything off. It reminds me of the weird 3D images that people have been putting up of like Katy Perry, where you like scroll and it fucking yanks her face totally out of proportion. It's so upsetting.
Or the one of Chris Pratt as Andy Dwyer, where his mouth like stretches.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Oh, really? I made a bunch of screen caps because the more I moved it, the funnier I got.
But yeah, she points out to Donna that these are all the same kid. And Donna is like, you don't understand. You don't have children. And this bitch is like, neither do you. And I was like, can you just not with the truth right now? Can't you see he's about to fucking like explode? But yeah, she just keeps on saying shit like, they're not real. They're not real. You're full of shit. These kids aren't real. And I was just like, ouch. Which leads to this scene with Donna tucking her kids in. And her kids being like, hey, Mom, you know what's real weird is that when you're not around, it seems like we're also not around. Weird, right?
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Donna's just like midway being like, no, of course you're totally here. What do you mean? And they're like, no, like sometimes even when you like close your eyes, it's like we just stop. And she says, well, then I just promise to never close my eyes. And then all of a sudden, they're gone.
Don't blink. Blink and you're dead.
Her acting in this moment is the worst. And by worst, I mean very good and heartbreaking. I really did not care for her, like, scream crying. Mm-hmm. It was just, it was awful. It was so bad. Ugh, hated it. Hated it, hated it, hated it. And, you know, they're not real, but what she's feeling is real. That's not, it doesn't matter if they weren't real. And, I just hate it. And you know what? I also like, not to get too depressing here, but like, I'm going to do it. If she has children in life, will she always be comparing her real children to the fake children that she had first?
I don't know.
Because I feel like that's a fucked up thing that would happen. You'd be like, you know, my computer children, they went to bed when I told them to go to bed. You know, like, they ate all their peas. My computer children smelled better than you do.
Oh, my God.
Just like little things where it's just like, oh, man, I really miss those computer children that were very well behaved and made my life a utopia. And now I'm stuck with this brat who screams and throws things and used my $40 MAC lipstick to draw a painting on the fucking bathroom wall.
Oh, God, kids do that, too.
Yep. I say that as a kid who definitely did that. It wasn't necessarily $40 MAC lipstick, but it was lipstick. It was a bathroom. And I was old enough to know better, but my mom didn't think I was quite old enough to know better. And so she forgave me immediately. And I felt super guilty because I was like, oh, she thinks that I'm so little that I don't know. But I knew I wasn't supposed to do that. And I didn't do it again because I felt so bad because she was so nice about it.
I'm sending you. Oh, wait. In a second, I'm going to send you all these Chris Pratt. these Chris Pratt screen caps. They are just insane. Okay. I was going to tell a really horrible story, but yours about lipstick on the wall is much better than the very sad story that I was going to equate to what you were my computer children.
What was yours?
I knew
say that and then be like, oh, I'm not going to tell it.
I knew a girl whose sister had her baby. Well, she was like 9 months pregnant. The baby died, and she had to actually give birth to it because when the baby's that far along, you have to actually go through the birth process, and it fucking like broke her sister's brain. And then later on, she had a kid that survived, and whenever that kid would like not want to eat something or not behave, she'd be like, your sister would have, but she didn't get a chance to. Yeah, it's fucked up. I told you,
that's so fucked up.
It like broke her brain.
Oh, fuck. That's rough. You're right, Jamie. You should have told me that story.
Told you. You went on a really fun place with it, and I was like, yeah, this reminds me of, that's a terrible story.
You made the right call. I apologize for second guessing your judgment.
I tried, you guys. I tried.
Oh, God. That's such a direct, the kind of trauma that parents inflict on their kids. That's really their own trauma. That's like such a 1-to-1 ratio. God.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we've done that and been super sad about it, let's move on to the doctor who realizes that Mr. who turned out the lights is still walking around, and he decides to confront this thing and be like, why are you here? Because y'all live in forests and hunt in forests, and I really don't get it. And this thing finally starts to communicate through the body of this dude somehow, which
it's through the ghosting, the consciousness that's still in that little thing on the suit. He's able to sort of access, I guess, the ability to speak.
Which, the guy has no vocal cords or anything left, so...
Look, we're in a library in space. What are you going to do?
But yeah, he explains that these are all of the trees from the forest.
These are our forests.
Yeah. And the doctor takes longer than I expected to catch on.
Agreed.
Because I was like, yeah, it's the tree. It's paper, dude. Hello? And yeah, finally he gets it. And is like, oh, fuck. Y'all were just up in those trees that they cut down and made into books. And now you're here. Oh, that sucks. And it's really funny because then this is followed by his realizing that the other person is also dead that's behind him, and the two of them sort of coming at him, and him being like, oh, you have to stay near the door, and he drops through, and I'm like, they are walking very slowly. You don't need to fall through a trapdoor in the floor and hang from your hands above a drop that looks like it's 30,000 feet. You could have just really quickly stepped to the left. And you would have been fine. But I think we have established already that the doctor is a massive drama queen.
Yes, true.
So it's fine. So yeah, he's hanging from a pipe underneath, and the little girl, the library girl, is like watching him. And I just really enjoy the show making this so meta, so that we're watching her watch him on her show that we're watching as a show too. I don't know. I really enjoy this. So then we go to, he like joins up with them again in the main room, and let's see, it's a River is talking, and she's saying, you know, it's funny, I keep wishing the doctor was here. And Nita says, well, he is here. And she's like, yeah, no, not really. Like, this is raw, uncooked doctor. I don't like it as much. I like it when he's toasty golden brown. A little burnt around the edges, maybe. It's like a raw marshmallow. Like,
she says at some point that he is like hard work when he's young or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's 900 years
Sounds
old.
So filthy. Yeah, so it must be a little whiles away. I don't know. And listen, don't take this anybody as me being like, I don't like River, because I do like River a lot. But part of me loves how this story went so much that I don't want to see her again, because I like the weird mystery of her encounters with him and her descriptions of the things that they did and saw being like this sort of, it's the same as his name, you know?
Yeah.
I like it all being part of this mystique that never really gets opened up to us, but that we know he goes on and has other lives and other experiences that are, it sort of makes the world feel bigger and make him feel like bigger.
A little more lived in.
Yeah, because everything that's, you know, even though he time travels, him encountering somebody that he hasn't met yet, but who knows him, that's never happened. And so it's kind of like, it makes him feel a little bit more of like a complete person when there's stuff that even he hasn't done before or experienced yet that we're getting to like watch happen in real time for the first time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, every episode there is something that like he's either never seen, or, you know, he'll be like, oh, I've never seen them do this. Like, so it's not like he never encounters new things, but this is a particularly doctor-ish experience, running into somebody that knows you already because of time travel. This is something that is so specific to who he is as a Time Lord. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so that, for me, is just really interesting.
Do you think that we'll get to see when they first meet from her perspective? Of, like, the first time she gets to meet him?
I don't really know what the show does. I don't know what the show is interested in doing. I feel like that we probably will, because it seems like that's something that they couldn't really resist after establishing things like this. And I don't blame them for that. But there's a part of me that's kind of like, everything that she has said with her vague details or lack completely of details is so much fun that I don't know what you could write would be as good as whatever I briefly imagined just from this like impression I got.
Right.
From what she said. So yeah, like, I'm not going to be mad if they decide to pursue this and do this whole thing, because it just feels like there's no way a show like this sets this up and doesn't pursue it. You've got to. But part of me does want to, like, keep it secret and safe. Like Gandalf.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Keep it safe. But she says, I've seen whole armies turn and run away, and he'd just swagger off back to his TARDIS and open the doors with a snap of his fingers. And then he says something from off camera about how you can't open the door with a snap of your fingers. And she's like, maybe you can, but the doctor can. And
my doctor.
It works for the doctor. I am the doctor. Yeah, someday. Woo! That is so incredibly cutting him down to size in a way that I'm just fucking living for right now. I really am. Like, because the second ago, she's saying, like, I've seen whole armies run away, and part of me wanted to roll my eyes. But then she immediately is like, yeah, you ain't shit, though. Not yet. Nobody's scared of your ass. And I'm like, all right, no, we're friends again. This is fine. So somebody asks him where other Dave is, and he's like, yeah, he's gone. Sorry about that. And he is looking at the fact that Anita's still alive, but that the shadow is still there. It has not gone yet. And she sort of thinks that maybe nobody's going to ever see her face again. Which I was like, that's a weird assumption that, like, you're not going to get off of this planet and be able to eventually take your helmet off. Like, because I'm thinking that these things don't just follow you, but I guess they would, is the assumption, right? Like,
if they've attached to her. Like, they've attached to her suit, so how do you get rid of a shadow?
If it's attached to her suit, can't she just, like, go somewhere and take the suit off?
And throw it out into space, maybe.
Yeah. Like, be in an airlock? Is it kind of... No?
Yeah. Just made me think of Battlestar Galactica. All the airlocking on...
I love their airlocks.
Really love their airlock on that show. Yeah.
So she says something about how she would like to hear what it is that River said to him, because she could do with something like that to give her a bit of a boost.
Yeah, and she says, I'm about to die, so your secret is safe with me.
Mm-hmm. And he says, safe. And she says, what? And he says, safe. You don't say saved. Nobody says saved. You say safe. Now, I really like this episode, but this is the weakest jump I've ever seen. If you're talking about how many people you managed to rescue off of a ship that's sinking, you would say 30 people were saved. Of course you would.
Yeah.
So, like, the idea that, like, he comes to this conclusion because nobody would ever say it. Everybody would. Literally, in history, that is the way it has been said.
Well, the way that what he's questioning is that it says 4,022 saved, not 4,022 people have been saved or were saved. Just saved. It's the way it's worded.
But he doesn't say that. He doesn't focus on have been. He focuses on safe versus saved. Mm. You know?
Yeah.
It's just I feel like there was a better way to have him suddenly start thinking about the wording than to have him, like, get jostled with the thought of the word safe. It just feels super duper unnatural to me. And I don't know. It just, especially considering that, like, when I was seeing that there were, like, people's faces, and that it's saying, like, I leapt to the saved, like, on a computer hard drive last episode, but it's only just occurring to him. So I don't know. This little epiphany moment just did not work for me at all. It took me actually, not until he came to his conclusion did I really even understand what it was they were trying to do in this scene, because it just didn't feel like it made sense that was the part he was focusing on and being like, oh my God, this is, and I'm just like, but people would say that.
Right. And he could have come to this conclusion by making that leap and going, safe, saved, like onto a computer. Mm-hmm. I get
there
it.
were just
I
a
see what you're
million
saying.
other ways that it could have been done that would not feel quite so contrived.
Yeah,
and, like,
he could have
weird.
made the word association without it being like, you don't say it this way.
Right.
Blame Moffat.
Yeah, just a weird thing. Because considering the rest of the episode and how much I like the like overall story and everything, it was just a weird moment of just like, whoa, what are you doing here, guy? But yeah, he figures out that like the computer pulled them all out and didn't have anywhere to send them, evidently. So it's just holding on to them because it doesn't know where to put them, essentially. And the computer has like created this other place for them. And he doesn't like, I'm not sure exactly how much the Doctor knows about the extent of this other world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think he knows anything about it.
I don't think so either. And I kind of wanted there to be a moment where Donna got to like talk with him about it a little bit more. Like because she mentions the guy that she thinks that she invented, but it doesn't really get across that like I thought that I had lived like 15 years, basically, you know?
Well, I think that we're supposed to just assume that they do have those conversations. We just don't get to witness it.
I want to see his reaction.
Yeah.
And see him realizing like, oh my God, you really like had a life taken away from you, and sort of like grasp the profundity of what she went through, because this is serious, you know? But yeah, I assume that she like does tell him everything. It's just, I really wanted there to be like that moment of just like, because he can sometimes fall into that trap of really thinking because of who he is and what he's gone through, that other people don't really understand loss the way that he does. Mm-hmm. And I wanted there to be this moment of like, we had Donna losing out on somebody that she thought was her soulmate because he was in league with a giant spider woman. And that sucks because it's heartbreaking and he was lying to you and hated you the whole time. But then she has the real loss of somebody that did care about her.
Yeah.
At least she thought. And it's true, but she doesn't know it's true. And all of this is stemming from this weird, like, borderline supernatural thing. I don't know. I just wanted him to have a bit of a connection with her on that, of this whole other life. Because he's sort of, like, experiencing a weird other life thing when it comes to River knowing him and telling him about himself in a context that's like outside of anything that he really understands. Can we talk about the weird line where she's like discussing the fact that a decimal point must have shifted in Miss Evangelista's IQ?
Miss Evangelista says that when she was uploaded, they must have, there was a decimal point shifted. But she says that it doesn't. Do IQ points have decimal points?
I didn't think so.
Yeah. Whatever.
She says, but my face has been the bigger advantage. I have two qualities you require to see absolute truth. I am brilliant and unloved. What? What does that mean? I didn't understand that.
It's like she's saying that she wouldn't be able to see the way the world really is if she were loved. But because she's fortunate enough to be so hideous now that she can't be loved, that means that she gets to use all this new brain power and recognize that this world is not right. Which is just bullshit.
That's bonkers.
It's like a really
nonsense.
Fucked up way of thinking, and I can lay that all on Stephen Moffat's stupid brain that he would think that something like that should feel like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, as if not being loved means that...
This is some incel shit.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is just like some... my mind isn't clouded by...
Exactly.
The love of another person.
Right.
So only me, truly alone, can understand the meaning of the universe.
It's kind of an infuriating way of looking at the world. And, like, it's saying exactly that all of these people around here, because they're not hideous, and so someone does care about them probably, they don't actually see what's really happening.
Yeah, that's some nonsense.
Yeah. I have my issues with Stephen Moffat and some of his storytelling. I have a lot of issues with him as a person because he just seems fucking awful. But he does tell some really great stories. Mm-hmm. Like, all of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who, or most of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who, were written by him. So, he clearly knows how to craft a story. I've heard that Sherlock is very good, too. It's mostly, just yes. That sometimes within those stories, he puts in shit like that. Mm-hmm. That makes me go, fuck you.
It's just one of those lines that I think is supposed to seem really profound, that you just sit there and go, wait, that didn't really mean anything.
And when you break it down, it's
more ridiculous when the camera pulls back and little library girl is sitting there watching this and crying. And I'm just like, are you really doing this? That you're going to say, like, my writing was so profound that this little girl is going to be weeping as a result. Like, well, dude.
Yes, that is something that he would do. But also, like, when you break it down the way we just did, and you're like, wait, no, that's fucking gross. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's stuff like that about him that makes me mad. So when I get mad about Stephen Moffat, it's not that I think that he's a terrible writer. I actually think he's a very good writer, which also makes me mad because sometimes I don't want to like him.
Right, yeah. Yep.
And I don't want to like his work because I don't like him as a person.
Yeah, it feels like this is like a Rick and Morty kind of thing, where it's like we're just so misunderstood, but the fact that nobody understands us points to how right we are.
Yeah.
And it's just like, maybe you're just a fucking dickhead, though. Yeah. Maybe you're an asshole and you're not right, and everybody dislikes you because you're an asshole and not because you're so right and the truth really hurts. Right?
Goes back to, that line from Justified that I've talked about before. That's one of my favorite lines ever written in anything, is if you meet one asshole, you met an asshole. But if every person you meet that day is an asshole, maybe you're the asshole. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, all right. I'm glad to hear that I didn't misunderstand that line and that it is stupid and trash. So that makes me feel better.
And it's just a disservice to poor Miss Evangelista.
Right?
Like, it boils her down to either she's beautiful and dumb, mm-hmm. or she's hideous and brilliant. Mm-hmm. But nothing in between. She
Never
can't
the
just,
twain shall meet.
Yeah, like, she can't ever be just pretty and smart and normal. Or pretty and just normal and not a dum-dum. Mm-hmm. Like, it's one or the other with this poor girl.
And not for nothing, but it didn't seem like she was loved even when she was pretty.
Right?
People were treating her like garbage.
To her face.
Yeah.
And her dad told her she had the intelligence of a plankton.
Yep.
Like, that girl deserved better. Justice for Miss Evangelista.
Evangelista deserved better. Another postcard.
Well, you remember with Stranger Things when, Barb dies in the first season? Spoilers for Stranger Things from season 1. And everybody's like, justice for Barb, because they didn't, have a big comeuppance about her. Mm-hmm. Will get saved, but poor Barb just has to, be eaten by worms in the Upside Down. So there's this whole movement of justice for Barb. I just think that Miss Evangelista deserves some of that. Justice,
I like that.
Justice for her.
And she gets her face back once River gets thrown in there.
Yeah.
But did her IQ get, like, brought back down? Is everybody going to be an asshole to her in the afterlife because she's stupid again? Like,
I hope not.
God.
Maybe they all got
I'm telling you guys, everything about this episode is super sad and upsetting. Like, so she says, I'm sorry, but now that you understand, you won't be able to keep a hold. They are sustained only by your belief. And this is when Donna says, you don't know, you don't have children. And she says, neither do you. And this is when the little girl starts yelling, stop it. You're spoiling everything. I hate you. And her father comes in and is asking what's wrong. And she yells, shut up, and uses her remote to disappear him. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty great, and the power that I would like, please and thank you.
God, if we could just do that in real life. There's a lot of people.
There would not be a soul left on the face of this planet of Earth.
I would just go around from place to place and be like, delete.
You know?
Delete. We just turned ourselves into Cybermen.
And there's this really alarming moment, too, when she's bringing her kids home, and she... like, all of a sudden, they're in the house, and her daughter says, that was quick, wasn't it, Mummy? That part fucked me up a little bit. Because they clearly haven't been, like, noticing the weirdness until, like... But then it turns out they have been because they mention it to her later. But it hasn't been enough for them to say anything before. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're, like, cluing in as well, that this isn't quite right. Doesn't that seem
system is
strange
breaking down.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, no. And then she turns around. The fucking sky is bright red. And I was like, oh, sailors take warning. Unless it's night, I guess. And then the sailor's delight. And meanwhile, the doctor is realizing that some shit is really, really wrong. And that they are going to need to go to the core of the planet to find out what the fuck is happening. And she uses her sonic screwdriver to pull up the gravity platform that they can jump on and get lowered down into the core of the planet. And this is when he says, I bet I like you. And she says, oh, you do. And then they bang on the gravity platform all the way to the bottom.
We just don't see it because it's a kid's show.
It'll be real fucked up if by the time we do meet her, it turns out she's his daughter or something. And I've been making all these jokes about them banging. But, you know, I'm going to just like go on faith that that's not what it is. And this is when Donna's kids disappear. They get to the bottom and he finds out that this little girl is actually the one that's like hooked up to this machine. Mm-hmm. And he realizes that Anita is actually gone. And he tells the shadows that are trying to come at him to look him up as they approach. And they do. And then they're like, well, I wasn't gonna anyway. And he's like, yeah, that's what I fucking thought. They're like, you have a day. I really enjoy the moment of it, like, holding its hand out and its shadows, like, growing on the floor. Because it's a really simple effect that could just literally be achieved by shifting a light. Yep. You know? But it's just such a cool looking thing. Especially, there's a villain in the Dresden Files named Nicodemus Arcleone, who is the body that houses the soul of a fallen angel. And he has a shadow that can move independent of the rest of him.
Like Peter Pan.
So there'll be moments where he'll be standing somewhere talking to somebody, and in the background, his shadow is just like whizzing around in circles, like a fucking shark, like casing the joint, basically. And it's very unnerving. So what I'm saying is I like sinister shadows. I think it's fun. So it gives him a day, and this is when he has the conversation with, and by conversation I mean desperate pleading, with River, who decides that she is going to be the one to take a bullet for everybody. Now, I don't really understand how this works.
I don't either. It's something he says something about how the computer, in order to achieve what they need to achieve, the computer needs more memory. And so he is going to hook himself up to the computer so that his big brain helps the memory. And she's like, no. If you do that, then both of your hearts will die and you won't be able to regenerate. And
why not?
Well, I guess if both of his hearts are dead, I don't know. That's never been explained before, as far as I know. So if anybody does know, please let us know. If it, the fact that he has two hearts is part of the reason he has the ability to regenerate. But I guess if both hearts are dead, then he's dead.
All right.
That's the way she makes it sound. So she, knocks him out and handcuffs him to a pipe and hooks herself up to the computer. I don't know why this is something that they need to do.
Yeah, I don't really understand.
It's something about
because
getting...
It would be one thing if it was his mind because of his, intellect, but the fact that she could also do this...
It's that in order to restore the saved people, the library needs extra memory. So he thinks that by using his brain to give it that extra memory, they'll be able to bring all these people back. It's not... I don't think it's because he is so much smarter or has a bigger brain. I think it's just the doctor being the doctor, I'll save the day. I'll do this and it'll save everybody. And
how does the sacrifice of give it extra memory?
Because it's hooking his brain up. It's like adding a little SD card to your computer.
Are you trying to tell me that there's not a fucking actual SD card somewhere that we could just stick in the slot and then it'll all be fucking dandy? Are we going to sit here
this computer
and talk
is
about
made
how
up of this little girl's brain?
They have sonic screwdrivers that don't have SD drives in them? Oh, guess what? It does have an SD drive that she gets saved to. How about we just take the drive that her consciousness gets put on and fucking use that? Just a thought.
Because they needed all that extra memory space. Besides just...
Don't talk to me. Get out of here.
Consciousness. They needed to have River sacrifice herself to make it sad. That's why. Because why couldn't it have just been the guy who's her nephew? The family member.
Yeah, where's this asshole?
Because that wouldn't have broken our hearts.
Ugh. How great would that have been if he was screaming and protesting and the doctor was like, you left her here alone for 100 years. And then just fucking plugged the guy in and boom, done. Dead. Yeah. I would have liked that. Vengeance is mine, saith the doc.
Nope, but instead we have to lose River, who handcuffs him, and he's like, where did you have handcuffs? She says, spoilers.
Spoilers. Yeah.
I
enjoy the spoilers thing a lot, continually being brought up because, I feel like River and I have a lot in common.
I just love her so much.
Between her reluctance to entertain spoilers and her hair, I feel like we've really got a lot of, kindred spirits for sure.
Her hair is incredible.
So yeah, she tells him, what's fucked up is that you must have known the whole time that we were hanging out that I was going to die like this. So cool. That's not awful in retrospect at all. Meanwhile, Donna is like at home and her children are gone, but her husband is there. And she's telling him everything is real, and everything isn't real. And he asks, am I real? And she says, of course you're real. Of course you are. I know you're real. And she says, oh God, you were real. And then all of a sudden they begin to be parted from one another by this like earthquake thing that's happening as the light goes blinding white and he gets pulled away. And she takes this to mean that he wasn't real after all.
Well, she's screaming that she'll find him. But then when she's looking around the library, and she doesn't seem to look for very long. Because
she doesn't, though, does she?
There's 4,000 people to look through, which seems like, sure, it'll take a little bit of time.
I feel like this library has got to have an intercom somewhere.
Like, it's not like the doctor was like, tapping his watch, tick, tick, we gotta get going. Yeah. You know? Like, he would have given her as much time as she needed to go through all of the people you just brought back before they get zoomed off in this teleport to find this guy so that you don't, for the rest of your life, think you made up the perfect man who couldn't talk because you're an asshole yourself.
How amazing to find somebody that you're like, this person is so perfect that they literally cannot be real. There's no way.
Yeah.
Like, that is so sweet and terrible. Sweet and terrible. Going on my gravestone. Okay, so everybody gets pulled back. They're all in black. A lot of Steve Jobs looking folks. Except for Donna, who's in her own clothes for some reason. But that's fine. I like that outfit, so I'm glad it's back. And she says, I suppose he could have had a different name out here, but let's be honest, he wasn't real, was he? And then we see him look up and see Donna as she's walking away and try and talk and yell for her as he gets like beamed away. And it is the worst moment in this show so far. Like, just cruel.
Yeah.
And I just hope that we do wind up meeting him again, because there is that moment of River looking at Donna when she realizes Donna's name.
Yeah.
And Donna being like, what the fuck is that? What does that mean? And I don't see, you meet the guy that you fell in love with and then you wind up settling with babies and having the life that you always dreamed of, provoking that sort of expression.
Mm-hmm.
So but it could be that she just got that expression because she knows Donna is about to get sucked into a computer in 10 minutes. I don't know.
Well, and Donna does talk to the doctor about that. And he's got River's diary. And he's like, this has everything about my future that she knows. So do you want to take a look? We can look in here and see what happens to you. And she decides not to. Yeah. It's like the library in the Magicians, where every person has a book, and you're not supposed to read your own book. The librarian says, you shouldn't read your own book. People frequently find that they don't like the main character, and usually they don't like the ending. It's in Supernatural as well that everybody, like the character of Death, has a library, and everybody has a book, and it tells how they end. And Dean Winchester actually has several. That makes sense, yeah. I would think that at one point she says your book has been reshelved 39 times. So, yeah, that'll happen. But yeah, I really do like that people frequently find that they don't like the main character, because holy shit, if that isn't the realest thing. Yeah. I just watched an episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend where one of the main songs was I'm the villain in my own story. Oh, that's funny. And, that's a real feeling, guys. That is a real life moment there where you're suddenly like, oh my God, I'm the bad guy. Oh my God, I'm the bad guy.
I'm the person somebody's going to be talking about and be like, she did what? Yeah, yikes. But yeah, so they decide not to read it, and they start to leave it there along with the like new and improved version of the sonic screwdriver, which I don't know why he would just want to leave that. But he doesn't. He turns around and realizes that like I gave her this for a reason, and figures out that she got saved on there somehow, and sprints on down to the core of the planet and uploads her to the utopia that has now been fixed. The doctor fixed the data cord. This is a good place now. And she's wearing a fabulous white dress and cardigan ensemble with her loose curls like some sort of Grecian goddess. And her friends come walking out, and Evangelista is also in a pretty sweet dress. Everybody else has got khakis on, which feels like a real step down, but I guess that's fine. I'm like, honestly, if I go to the afterlife and khakis are involved, I'm fucking leaving. Like, no, sir. I worked at a Target for a little while. I've had my fill of khakis forever. Don't fit over my ass. Khakis are not made for people with butts. Just saying. So, yeah, she gets to like have 3 children. She continues on to live a life that seems very similar to Donna's, except I don't think we see a man in her life, right?
No. Did she have... I mean, she's in that room with the beds, but there's no
She's
kids
tucking in
them.
3 kids.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh,
She says she's like talking to them. And she...
I think I totally missed that somehow.
Yeah, she kisses the girl on her head and walks out and says, everybody have sweet dreams. And it's clearly like she's looking after them. I don't know if they're meant to be her kids, like, really or not. It's weird, too, because, like, if they're copies of just 2 children, then 2 of those kids are the same.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that there would only be 2 children now, that the whole, like, this virtual world has been sort of cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
That only, like, the 2 original kids would remain. But apparently not, because there's 3 here.
It's also just kind of, again, kind of gross. That's like, here's this lady, she's in this utopia, and here's some kids for her.
Yep. Because clearly that's every lady's utopia, is having little children to look after perpetually until the end of time.
Yeah.
That sounds
like,
awesome.
I don't hear River talking about her children in her real life, so why would that be utopia for her?
Nope.
So suck it, Moffat, you fucking sexist.
Yeah. It is pretty, like, as somebody who does not want children, never wanted children, and the prospect of raising children is sounding to me these days like a genuine...
hellscape?
Like, it's truly like a nightmare...
Sorry
to
my friends
invent.
who have children. I love your children.
I'm not sorry.
Just don't
All
want
of
any
you know
of
how
it.
I feel. It's fine. And you know I'm right. And it's, you know, you're just choosing to do it anyway. And for that, I low-key admire and also don't admire you at all. But yeah, this would be for me the opposite of a restful end of life situation. It would feel really exploitative and like, oh, cool. I was given this like beautiful place to live and beautiful clothes to wear, and I don't get to enjoy any of it because I have to raise these fucking rugrats who are never going to grow up.
The notes I have, which I didn't read this part till just now, is that it's the 2 children that were in Donna's story and Charlotte, the little girl.
Oh, the library lady girl brain. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So she's taking care... Oh, she gets saddled with this little girl. Just fucking turn it off, man. Like, this little girl shouldn't be here anymore. Find a different brain. Have a lottery. Be like, does it sound good to anybody to run a library for 100 years? And I'm sure some fucking lunatic out there is going to be like, that sounds dope, sign me up. And just do like a Facebook raffle or some shit where like share this 300 times and we'll put you in the drawing. Like, and then you just can trade in and out new librarian brains every few years, 100 years.
Sure.
Whatever. Make it a big ceremony. And then when they're laid to rest, you can just, and like, honestly, it would be so much better for somebody who's like old than for a child.
Yeah.
Because then they get to like kind of go and like live again with the full appreciation of adulthood of the opportunity that they're getting. Mm-hmm. Like I understand the poetry of like, oh, they were a child and they never really got to live, but like they don't know what they're missing. It's fine. Have somebody who gets it, who's genuinely like, man, I thought I was going to do all this stuff, but I was poor and I was sick and I got old and none of this ever like worked out for me. But now I have a chance in this virtual world to do all the stuff that I couldn't do while I was alive for X, Y, and Z reason. Way better. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I would fix the universe.
The only thing we didn't talk about is that the Doctor then goes and tests out this snapping his fingers to open the TARDIS doors, and it does work.
And it works.
Yep.
And he's kind of like, oh shit. I did like that a lot because it felt so like, it was so weird how it just worked. But I'm thinking that it's because he had the intention of trying to see if it would open the door.
Yeah.
But I like to think that, like, what if he just snapped his fingers at one point when he was standing outside of it and the doors just opened and he was just like, wait, what? How did that work?
Well, you remember that episode with that dumbass Adam who puts that thing in his head and it snaps his forehead open every time he snaps his fingers? Yeah. The TARDIS door, I don't think, opened and closed because the Doctor did snap his fingers before he got into the TARDIS.
So it is an intention thing. Really.
I think so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He has to direct it towards like, I want this to happen.
It'd be so amazing if he was inside the TARDIS and they fucking like were fucking hurtling through space and he snapped his fingers for a totally unrelated reason and the doors just fly open and they get sucked into the cold darkness of space. Whoops. Thus ends the Doctor.
So Moffat has a recurring theme of everybody lives, which returns during this episode. There was in The Doctor Dances, where he says, just this one time everyone lives. In the BBC podcast associated with this episode, Stephen Moffat and Russell T. Davies pointed out that so far in the 4 major storylines that Moffat has contributed to, the only final deaths that have occurred have been due to old age, such as Billy Shipton and Kathy Nightingale in Blink, or to illness, which is what Madame de Pompadour died of.
Right, yeah.
Moffat then promised that he will kill people off in a more dramatic fashion in future stories. So thanks for that. Donna's children were named Joshua and Ella, which were named after Stephen Moffat's son and his son's best friend, which is actually kind of cute.
Yeah.
During the audio commentary on the DVDs, David Tennant mentioned that the wedding dress that Donna is wearing in her little montage is the same dress that she wore in The Runaway Bride.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Oh, that's fun.
And that the question of the Doctor's real name dates back to the earliest days of the series. So we may or may not know it. I don't know it because I haven't watched those early episodes, but maybe it is known, and we know that only some people actually know what it is, and maybe it's never been revealed.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to cling to that we never know about it, but we'll see.
Yeah. And then we do have a review.
Ooh.
And it is Alonzi, 5 stars, by Jake80. I'm wondering if this is Jake Bobo? He's a patron?
I don't know. Yeah. What's up, Jake?
Fan of New Who, just getting into it. This is the perfect podcast for you. Natasha has no idea what is happening, Jamie is a Who veteran. Together, they work through each episode with hilarious commentary as Natasha attempts to apply standard genre tropes to Who, and Jamie guides her through it without spoiling anything. It's really a great way to spend an hour or so of your day.
Aw. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate ya.
If this is Jake Bobo, he kicked my ass in fantasy football last weekend. Severely.
Oh, man. I just realized, is the World Series over?
I think Game 7 is either tonight or was last night. Not sure.
Because, there's been a bunch of, football stuff, and I can't believe that I missed all of this happening. I had no idea we were in the middle of the World Series. Normally I see friends posting about it, and I had no clue.
Well, the teams in the World Series, I think, aren't teams that there are a lot of, loud fans for. It's the Astros and the Nationals. I don't know a single person that's a Nationals fan. And, I know people who live in D.C., but they're not Nationals fans. Mm-hmm. I didn't even realize the World Series was happening until Trump got booed. So that was gorgeous. Loved it.
Oh, that's what that was. It was at the World Series.
It was at the World Series because the game was in Washington. And he went to the game and got fucking booed, and it was incredible. And I loved every second of it.
Yeah, I did not realize that was what that was. And he was at a Nationals game.
Yep.
Oh, that's a little bit perfect.
They not only booed him, but they chanted, "Lock him up."
He was like, I thought this was a nationalist game. Why does everybody hate me here? These are supposed to be my people.
There was somebody who had a big sign that said, "Impeach Trump." And there were people right behind home plate with signs that said, "Veterans for impeachment."
I just got a friend request from Jake Bobo.
Really?
This minute. Jake.
That's
Jake.
weird.
Where's the fucking bug, dude? What? That's freaking me out. What the fuck? Oh, I don't care for that at all. Am I inside some little girl's brain? Oh, sorry.
That's
God,
really funny.
That really freaks me out.
I'm actually surprised that you weren't already friends with him. He's very sweet.
I want to post about this in the group, but I also don't want to spoil that this happens. So I'm just going to leave it and not say anything until Jake hopefully eventually listens to this episode. Oh, yikes. That's funny. All right. Is there anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think I've...
Oh my God, I just got your text. Oh no, Andy Dwyer, why? I didn't realize that he was in Jennifer's Body, which I watched last night.
He is?
Only in it briefly. He plays a cop or a bouncer or something. And he is such a goober.
Bulky.
Oh, he what?
He used to be so bulky, that's why.
He was like
fatty bulky.
Thin.
Was he?
Yeah, and that was, Owen was like, what? I didn't know that he was thin and then got chunky and then got thin again. I thought that he was just chunky before.
I thought so too, but I didn't, I knew his name because I worked with a guy in LA that went to high school with him, and he had just gotten cast on Everwood, and the guy that I worked with was really excited for his friend. My friend just got a series regular role on a TV show. And so I always remembered the name, but never watched that show. So I didn't really know who he was until Parks and Rec. And by Parks and Rec, he was fat. He was fat Andy.
He had a belly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, Andy Dwyer. There, that face. Okay. But yeah, that's exactly what's her face looks like when her face is messed up. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
It was this exact effect.
I also have some screen caps I made that Katy Perry once. So.
Don't. No. Draw on the line. For some reason, those are more upsetting. I don't know if it's because she's not making a silly face to begin with, so there's a lot of teeth. Because his teeth are kind of covered with the expression that he's making. And her teeth are out there because she's smiling. So when her face gets distorted, her teeth grow to be 6 inches long. And it's really
Well, now you're making me. I'm going to have to share the ones I saved. Because they were very funny.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the episode. Happy Halloween. We're recording this on Halloween. By the time you listen to this, Halloween will be long over and it will be practically Christmas, according to retail. But I hope that you feel that we did this justice. And, you know, I hate you guys all for making me real sad and realize how terrible. Why are you sent, Jamie? All right. You know what? Toodaloo, motherfuckers. That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.